Lesson 14. Honesty with your Guru. Some people use the excuse of truthfulness to nag their spouse about what they don't like about him or her, or to gossip about other people's flaws. This is not the spirit of Satya. We do not want to expose others' faults. Such confrontations could become argumentative and combative. No one knows one's faults better than oneself, but fear and weakness often prevail, while motivation and a clear plan to correct the situation are absent. Therefore, to give a clear plan, a positive outlook, a new way of thinking, diverts the attention of the individual and allows internal healing to take place. This is wisdom. This is ahimsa, non-injury. This is satya, truthfulness. The wise devotee is careful to never insult or humiliate others, even under the pretext of telling the truth, which is an excuse that people sometimes use to tell others what they don't like about them. Wise devotees realize that there is good and bad in everyone. There are emotional ups and downs, mental elations and depressions, encouragements and discouragements. Let's focus on the positive. This is ahimsa and satya working together. The brahmachari and sannyasin must be absolutely truthful with their Sadguru. They must be absolutely diplomatic, wise, and always accentuate the good qualities within the sannyasin and brahmachari communities. The Guru has the right to discuss, rebuke, or discipline the uncomely qualities in rising up the brahmachari and sannyasin. Only he has the right because it was given to him by the brahmacharis and sannyasins when they took him as their Sadguru. In other words, when you accept Diksha, you are giving the right to the Guru. It is as if you ask, help me on my spiritual path to point out my faults and shortcomings if you have to. But you did not give such a right to others from whom you did not take refuge. And others did not give you the right either, because they did not take refuge in you or ask you for it. That means we do not criticize others, and we do not educate them. We do not try to remake them. It is just not our seva, not our task. And they did not ask us for it, and we do not need it in our path. This means that brahmacharis and sannyasins cannot discipline one another, psychoanalyze and correct in the name of truthfulness. Once again, brahmacharis and sannyasins cannot educate each other and discipline each other and psychoanalyze each other, correct in the name of truthfulness. If someone is a senior and appointed disciple of the Guru Mahant, and you accept him as a spiritual mentor by doing a spiritual obedience, that means that you ask him about it, and then he can give you the obedience. But if you don't ask him, he will not do it once again either. Only ethical and service obedience, same thing. But these authorities are meant to educate, and for everyone else, it is not their seva, not their service. Brahmacharis and sannyasins cannot discipline one another without violation. Mothers and fathers have rights with their own children, as do gurus with their shishyas. These rights are limited according to wisdom. They are not all-inclusive and not inhibit free will and well-rounded growth within an individual. This is why Guru is looked upon as the mother and father by the disciple's mother and father, and by the disciple himself, who is sent to the Guru ashram to study and learn. It is the Guru's responsibility to mold the aspirant into a solid member of the monastic community, just as it is the mother's and father's duty to mold the youth to be a responsible, looked up to member of the family community. When you become a brahmachari, it is the task of the Guru to turn you into a solid member of the monastic society. Whether or not that happens is 50% up to the Guru and 50% up to you. But I wish you all become solid members of the monastic society. This is how society progresses. The practice, niyama, to strengthen one's satya qualities is tapas, austerity, performing sadhana, penance, tapas, and sacrifice. If you find you have not been truthful, if you have betrayed promises, then put yourself under the tapas sadhana. Perform a lengthy penance, atone, repent, perform austerities. You will soon find that being truthful is much easier than what tapas and austerities will make you go through if you fail to restrain yourself. Truthfulness is the fullness of truth. Truth itself is fullness. May fullness prevail, truth prevail, and the spirit of satya and ahimsa permeate humanity. Lesson 15. Asteya, non-stilling. The third yama is asteya, neither stilling, nor coveting, nor entering into debt. We all know what stilling is, but now let's define covetousness. It could well be defined as owing something mentally and emotionally, but not actually owing it physically. This is not good. It puts a hidden psychological strain on all parties concerned and brings up the lower emotions from the Tala chakra. It must be avoided at all cost. Do you all know where the Tala chakras are? Yes, all the chakras with the name ending in Tala. Sutala, Vitala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Patala, and so on, starting from the hips to the heels. There the lower emotions from the mentioned always come. For example, anger, vengeful jealousy, and so on. We have to live in a way that we do not awaken the energies of the Tala chakras, but those of the chakras above, from Muladhara to Sahasrara chakra and above. Coveting leads to jealousy, and it leads to stilling. The first impulse towards stilling is coveting, wanting. If you can control the impulse to covet, then you will not steal. Coveting is mental stealing. Even a penny, a peso, a rupee, a lira, or a yen should not be misappropriated or stolen. Defaulting on debts is also a form of stealing. Well, this is more for lay disciples, entering complicated relationships with the world. As for brahmachari monastics and sannyasis, they cannot do debts. They take a vow of non-possession. Even if they manage funds, it is not their funds. And it is a principled vow to keep for life. For a sadhu, for a sannyasi, it is perfect. He decides to divert his attention from possessing material energy for the sake of sadhana. He thinks, how nice, I do not have to do all this, I would rather do sankalpa, japa, visualization or read a book. I have so much time to spare. Because those who operate with material energy, if they are sannyasis or sadhus, are real tapasvis. They have to spend their time and energy on all this, and I do not do this. That is his sannyasi's attitude. A sannyasi should not have a desire for material things or greed. He has everything he needs for liberation, 3 times as much. Moreover, if he has desires beyond that, that is unnecessary, and he has to cut them off. It is the philosophy of the sannyasi, not to have personal possessions, not to consider them a good thing, but to consider them a burden and to keep away from them as far as possible. An exception is those who, by service, by his position, are supposed to do that. The sthanapati, the ashram manager, and so on. They consciously take this dharma as a duty, as a weight and seva, but they do not consider it their own. Defaulting on debts is also a form of stealing. But avoiding debt in principle doesn't mean that one cannot buy things on credit or through other contractual arrangements. It does mean that payments must be made at the expected time, that credit be given in trust and be eliminated when the time has expired, that contracts be honored to the satisfaction of all parties concerned. Running one's affairs on other people's money must be restrained. To control this is the sadhana of asteya. Brahmacharis and sannyasins, of course, must scrupulously obey these restraints relating to debt, stealing and covetousness. These are certainly not in their code of living. To perfect asteya, we must practice dana, charity, the third niyama. We must take the Dashama Bhava Vrata, promising to tithe. Promising the tithe, pay Dashamamsha to our favorite religious organization, and on top of that, give creatively without thought of reward. Dashamamshi is a vrata vow for householders, when a commitment is made to contribute 1/10 of the income to the temple, ashram, in the sadhu community and such. It is a traditional vow in all Sanatana Dharma. In other religions, it is called the tithe. Stealing is selfishness, giving is unselfishness. Any lapse of asteya is corrected by dana. If there are difficulties with the asteya, it is easy to correct. Dana, give, be generous, be magnanimous, and your supply of merit in asteya will continuously be replenished. Material greed focuses on the material world. When we practice dana, we cultivate vairagya, the consciousness of generosity. The consciousness stops focusing on the material world. Bandhara, making offerings, a charity for ashrams, the poor, temple and dharma. For Sanatana Dharma, it is a question of prestige, question of pride. In a traditional Vedic society, you do not take pride in what you have, and you do take pride in what you have given away. Do you imagine of how is that a very different mentality? Be proud what you have given away, not what you have accumulated. So, I have a yacht, I have a summer house, and so on. That is not something to be proud of. But I have given away to 3,000 sadhus this bandara, or I have built this temple. That is something to be proud of, even to a worldly man, even to one who is selfish. That mentality helps to achieve liberation, because it is pride of sattva. If you are experiencing pride and selfishness, better to do it in sattva. If to be proud, better to be proud of dharma, not the possession of material things. From Sanatana Dharma point of view, that cult of success is being imposed in the consumer society, and it is so-called yesterday's news. Suppose one is to be proud of something. In that case, it should be of what one has given as dana, an offering to God, an offering to a sadhu, an offering to the dharma, or an offering to people, because it is the contentment that comes from dana that becomes the light of merit that will give you paradise, heaven, in the next life. Furthermore, what is the pride of possession in the material world? It will extract like an anchor back to the world of people, meaning that it is a doubtful merit. There is not much merit in that whatsoever. It is important to realize that one cannot simply obey the yamas without actively practicing the niyamas. To restrain one's current tendencies successfully, each must be replaced by positive observance. For each of the yamas, there is a positive replacement of doing something else. The niyamas must totally overshadow the qualities controlled by the yamas for the perfect person to emerge. It is also important to remember that doing what should not be done and not doing what should be done does have its consequences. These can be many, depending upon the evolution of the soul of each individual, but all such acts bring about the lowering of consciousness into the instinctive nature, and inevitably suffering is the result. Each Hindu guru has his own ways to mitigating the negative karmas that result as the consequences of not living up to the high ideas of these precepts. But the world is also a guru, in a sense, and its devotees learn by their own mistakes, often repeating the same lesson many times. Usually, if a worldly person or a person who does not follow the dharma does not have a guru, he is considered not to have a guru. When asked if you have a guru, he says no. But in fact, he also has a guru, and that guru even has a specific name, Vishwa Guruji Maha Maharaj. That is the material world as a guru, so it is believed that everyone has a guru. Only they manifest and teach people in different ways. So it is not a question of whether you will have a guru. It is a question of how exactly he will teach you and in what form. The material world teaches the soul without explaining too much. In the tradition of ancient Siddhas, they acted that way too, directly, in a non-mind state, and you can say it is the only solid energy that they transmit. When people do not control sexual energy and have sex, all of a sudden pregnancy happens. And as a result, they receive the lesson, baby, 14 years concentration, like in a dot. That's all without even explaining anything. It just happened. Something else also happens, a lesson again. One wants to exercise greed, go into business, enter into some relationships, partners, gangsters, taxes. This whole life also consists of lessons, constant lessons. Sometimes monks go home on vacation, periodically meet their parents, they look at their friends and classmates and as if they have not changed at all in others' perception. Well, in general, if monks do change, it is only inside. But on the outside, they do not acquire property, they do not have children or relatives, they keep remaining as they were, and their status is relatively permanent. However, looking at other people, they see that some got married, some divorced, some already have 3 children, and understanding comes that it turns out that people live in karma, and the karma gives them lessons that they live their life somehow. They go with the wind of time. It is often eye-opening. But it's true, it is Vishwa Guruji Maharaj teaching them in his own way, without philosophy, without explaining anything, through Shakti, through energy. The material Shakti teaches those souls who do not perceive God, who do not perceive Dharma, but perceive the material Shakti itself. It teaches them without alternative, rather harshly, without explanation, but it necessarily gives lessons to such souls. Only those souls who choose to learn more subtly, with wisdom and understanding, with their participation in these lessons, are called sadhus. Om Guruji, now that Tala Chakra subject has been touched, may I ask you a question? When we visualize Pranalinga, what do we do with it? Should we wait to work with the chakras in practice for now, or at least should we imagine them pure? It is necessary to visualize the Tala chakras as well. Visualize them pure in the pure channels in these chakras. There are practices of moving energy through the whole body, legs, and Tala chakras. However, after you have mastered the basic methods of kindling the inner fire, the four blisses, and so forth, but you can imagine them also as channels and chakras, and include them in the pranalinga as well. We do not activate the energy there. From the point of view of liberation, the vital energies are in the chakras from Sahasrara to Muladhara. That is where all the main work is done. Following this, we recite a mantra for the morning greetings of deities and planets, the harmonization of planets in our horoscope, and the illumination of the whole day. There are subtle forces in our life, and these subtle forces in Jyotish represent planets. However, they are not only physical planets that fly in the space. There are planetary energies that enter our subtle bodies and permeate our lives. If you don't have some mantras, you'll not be given all of them right now, it's okay, you can print them out later. I give blessings and you memorize them now, and then you will have them from these texts. Important is that I will give them right now to you. The main thing is not that you have them on paper, the main thing is that the Guru passed them on, and then you can print them out, and they will be with you for life. If you do not have some of them, it's okay, repeat and visualize them after me. Thus, the mantras for morning greetings to the deities. Tune into the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, right in front of you. Imagine them sitting in Padmasana on lotus thrones, as they are on the altar. The three original forces of the universe, creation, maintenance and destruction. And then we tune into the physical planets. Imagine the Sun on the right, the Moon on the left, then the Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus and Saturn, and Rahu and Ketu, which are not planets but specific nodes. We imagine them as deities, what they look like, and recite the mantra. And we imagine that from the planetary deities, the planets will get influences in the form of rays of light. And only pure, sattvic, blessed influences come out, just like in a Vishwarupa Darshan Yoga. And these influences come in the form of a column of light, descending from above and entering the top of our heads, then entering the spine central channel. This light flows through the chakras and channels, filling the aura and saturating the whole body with beneficial influences. That is, the planets are favorable to us, and the mantra blessed our entire beginning of the day, neutralizing the planetary effects that are not favorable. When we have received the blessings of all the planets, we need to feel the subtle planetary energy coming from the cosmos inside us. Something in us becomes in tune with the world's rhythms and cycles. Because the planets always move in the same orbits, they are very long-living divine beings. They are not just physical planets, but are gods, great divine beings, superconscious, and all enlightened. They live very long, and their rhythms and cycles. Suppose some planets in our horoscope have been affected, like Mars, the Moon, or the Sun. In that case, we align these energies within ourselves by the grace of the Anagraha Shakti, by tuning in with the mantras.